everyone, welcome to Garden Fork Radio. Are you here with Rick and Eric? Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Eric. How are you, my friend?
I'm wondering if you liked that link I sent you yesterday.
That's something, I didn't know you were that kind of person.
Oops.
Oops.
Hey, everyone, this is your first time here. Garden Fork is an eclectic DIY show. We touch on maker subjects, fixing stuff, gardening, cooking, beekeeping, stuff that interests us we thought you might like as well. So welcome and thanks for downloading. The first thing up is Eric's bad password hygiene. Will from the Weekend Homestead actually alerted me very promptly about this, but my Skype password was hacked, and I was sending out porn to all my friends.
Oh yeah, that rather interesting material you sent yesterday. Thank you so much.
Well, I've actually been pretty diligent about redoing all my passwords to include special characters and longer than 8 numbers or characters.
Right.
But the Skype password was one of the few that was a fairly simple password. So simple that I could remember it.
You
and
know,
then Mr. Weekend Homestead has said, hey, something up here.
You know, I've had several episodes like that. I've started using two-factor authentication as much as I can, and that's helping a lot. And then I'm also using a program called LastPass. There are several password management programs that will generate very complex passwords and remember them for you. And LastPass, I know, is both on your machine and on your handhelds, and so it works well with all the different formats. But there's OnePass, there are a number of them, but it's getting to be quite a problem. I'm throwing up more and more defenses as I go along. In fact, right now we're using a VPN, a virtual private network, to communicate on, just to keep whatever from getting to my machines.
Keep the bad guys out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder, really.
Well, speaking of some good guys or good people, women and men, we're using a new Skype recording setup using Audio Hijack, and it's thanks to a fella in the podcasting group on Facebook, and I'll link to the group that I joined. And it's a little geeky, but there's a lot of people wanting to learn about podcasting, and there's a couple of what I would call kind of maybe the old guard or experienced podcasters who are really helpful in sharing their information. And one of the guys posted a setup that he uses to record Skype and a local microphone using Audio Hijack. And so we've got that set up, and we're learning about things called dynamic processors and stuff to improve the audio quality. Not necessarily the content quality of Garden Fork Radio, but the audio quality of Garden Fork Radio.
Yes.
But I just thought that was very cool of him. Just very sharing where, maybe there are people that charge for this kind of thing,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I worry that my end's a little bit echoey because I haven't done anything to really suppress this room lately. And I've got the foam squares to put up, and I'm going to mount them on cardboard, I think, to kind of put them behind me to kind of cut some of the echo when I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I don't really hear it, but I do want to try and make I listen to this in the car, and I'm like, well, it sounds okay. But, video, I know like the back of my hand. Audio is such a different animal to try, and there's all these different filters and processors, and you can cut this and the dynamic range of this, and it's called there's a thing called a gate, and parametric equalizers, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I understand.
I know how to do a dissolve in video,
Yeah, and I've actually got ducking out kind of done, so you can duck below voiceovers or music or something and then duck back in.
Yeah.
I've got that. But we've both been using Audio Hijack, and it's a very, really inexpensive little program, and it has just a plethora of features that we hope will improve the podcast experience for you guys and be learning for us.
Yeah, cool. So I'm trying to be timely with Garden Fork videos, and I thought, I should start working on some seed starting videos. and I was going to start some seeds in the shop. And I have my fluorescent shop lights, and I have a rig, where I make some grow lights. And I went to Costco, and they had LED fluorescent bulbs that are 48-inch that will snap into a generic cold start fluorescent fixture. I just call them shop lights, a generic term.
Right.
So I'm going to try that. I think they were like $17 for two of them. And then they have LED shop lights, but they're quite a bit more expensive. And I thought, well, I already have the hardware. I already have these cold start, they're kind of cheap shop lights, and I could just snap in these LED bulbs.
Right.
I was curious what you thought about that, and also want to hear about your other LED experiences.
Oh, okay.
Tell us, Rick.
Yeah, tell me. I think that, tell me about, first of all, these snap-in shop lights. Are they, what color temperature are they? Do you
I don't know. I'd have to go downstairs and look.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. But they're white. They're not, really tending toward blue or toward red or something like that.
No, I think they're just a generic white.
Okay. Well, I'd be interesting to see how they work for you. The trick in most fluorescent setups is to use a cool and a hot bulb, or a red and a blue bulb, that light that tends to either end of the spectrum, because the light in the middle, as it gets toward the greenish yellow, is not used by plants. It uses the light on either end. So that's the reason that green reflects back, because the plant doesn't need it. It doesn't absorb it. So it'll be interesting to see how that works for you. And I don't know if you can change or get different temperatures so you can kind of crowd the ends of the spectrum for your seed starting. But I suspect they'll do just fine.
Well, my take on part of the seed starting is I get this question a lot. We have a couple of grow light videos, and obviously the people asking the questions are wanting to grow something other than seeds for your garden, tomato seeds. And they're always asking me about light spectrum. And I'm like, for the short amount of time that the seeds are going to be under the grow lights, you just take a warm white and a cold white bulb, and it'll work just fine.
You bet. And, I've got some very nice and fairly expensive LED grow lights, a complex of them that are different shades of red, or different temperatures of red, and then some blue in there. And then, of course, a little bit of, there's some that are in the IR spectrum, infrared spectrum, but then there were some that were in the ultraviolet spectrum that I didn't realize were there. I just thought they were white lights. And I'm beginning to think I probably damaged my cataracts, or my lenses, when I was sitting in here with them all last year. So I have been reluctant to get them out again this year.
Wow.
I meant to go get one of those grow bags or grow tents, and mount them in there so the light would not be reflecting directly in my eyes. But I didn't do that this year. So I'm behind, as usual, behind the power curve. I've got other projects going on. Got a lot of photography projects going on right now.
Yay.
So, yay.
Well, with those LED grow lights, you're approaching the $64 tomato,
Well, but if they last for a decade or so, of course, you had to figure in the cataract surgery, I guess.
Yeah. But oops.
Oops.
About that part.
Yeah. But yeah, it could be. But it's not it's a pretty good system, and I think it's going to get a lot better. And of course, these had big fans to cool them. Well, computer fans to cool them, and there were two of them that in each light that ran at full power all the time, and that was kind of annoying to sit in here with. So I'm trying to arrange something in the garage next year, I guess, or maybe later in the spring. It's a little early for me to be doing any seeds right now.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just got me thinking. I realize it's only January, but I always start seeds too late, so maybe I'll start them too early this time.
Well, and if you're going to do the videos, you have to, be ahead of things. When I was, I used to edit some newsletters, and we would have to extend out several months ahead to plan stories and that kind of thing. And that's really an art, trying to stay out ahead so that when you have something ready to present, it's timely. And so, around Halloween, you're writing Christmas pieces, that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of the, the magazines, like gardening magazines. Those articles and photos are taken the year before
Oh, yeah.
because they have to do spring planting, and so they had to shoot it the spring before because they can't just fly to Florida.
No, no. You've had some good videos lately, though.
Have I? So you've actually watched some of them?
I did. I've watched everything you put out, I think. There was the
That's why I
the
let you
weather
on the show.
Yeah, see, there was the weather station, hanging a TV, and my favorite, the rigatoni pasta pie.
But that's a delicious carbohydrate bomb.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. That's what you need during the winter.
But
I had a question about the pie, though.
Sure.
Is there enough sauce in there to make it really savory?
I think so, but I think I needed to work on distributing the sauce better. And I had a couple of aha moments while making the thing. And of course, I don't make it ahead of time. I just shoot the show. That's the beauty of Garden Fork. There was a lady that commented the other day. She goes, I enjoy your cooking videos, but you tend to skip over things and forgot to mention things. So I won't be using them for instructional purposes, but I will enjoy them anyway. And I'm like, that's about it.
Yeah.
But while I was using a jarred sauce because I just kind of wanted to be like, there's a storm outside. Let's just run to the store, And I found that you're basically taking tubular pasta, sticking on its end and putting it in an oven. And I saved some of the starchy pasta water, which I learned from Kenji at Serious Eats. And I should have thinned out the jarred sauce, and then that would allow me to pour the jarred sauce into the tubes of the pasta, and it would have distributed a little better. But what I did find is I put a layer of sauce on the bottom of the pan and then stack the pasta in it, which makes it really hard to make them stand on their ends because they slip around. But you could see, maybe you can see it in some of the photos, but the pasta was partially sucked up into the pasta. You could see where the bottom, like ½ inch or 3/4 inch of the pasta was red rather than that kind of pasta color.
Right.
Where it had absorbed some of the pasta cooking liquid because the pasta was still parboiled, so it was still cooking in the oven. So I think thinning out a sauce or making a thin sauce, and you could spoon it into the tops of the tubes or adding more sauce. I just thought one jar was enough. But
yeah, and don't eat the all the pasta out of the center of your rigatoni pie.
Well, I talked to my neighbor who I had borrowed the springform pan from, and he said that was a slightly larger form pan than usual. So if you use a smaller form pan, you can still poach some of the cooked pasta. I cook while I eat, so I'm just like, and I taste the pasta to see if it's ready,
Mm-hmm. We do not eat a lot of pasta anymore. We have replaced it with an organic brown rice.
Yeah.
It's actually farmed out in California. It's not from the southern states that have some arsenic problems with their rice. We've been doing that. It's slower carbohydrate uptake because it's whole grain brown rice. And then, of course, you get the roughage and all that with it too. And it's kind of chewy, nutty flavored.
Yeah.
So, we like it a lot. But I was tempted by this. The rigatoni pasta.
We've talked about the low carb thing before, which, and I realize that a lot of the Garden Fork videos are kind of carby. Because I eat pasta once a week now. I can't have it any more than that. Because it just makes me gain weight, even though I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's the same reason that I can't cook as much bread as I'd like to.
Yeah, I made bread actually with this rigatoni pasta pie. I baked the thing of no knead bread too, so it was like a super carb Saturday.
But just what you need.
It's a great potluck kind of dish, because everyone will bring macaroni and cheese and stuff like that, and meatloafs, and what's called hot dish in the Midwest or casseroles. And this is kind of a neat thing, because when you unmold it, when you take it out of the springform pan, it looks really cool because there's this pasta standing on end with this red sauce and cheese on the top, and it looks like a elongated pizza or something. So it's kind of
Right.
neat. But yeah, that was good. And then I got a lot of good feedback on the weather station video.
Ah, I am still waiting on my Bloom Sky weather station. It was a Kickstarter project, and like a lot of Kickstarter projects, they're having to learn as they go along, and particularly about shipping and packaging. And there was a problem with the batteries and sending them by air, and first one thing and another. But I'm expecting mine to come in about middle of February. But you already have this one up.
Yeah, it's I like it because it's a nice balance between features and price, and I would prefer it do a couple things differently than how it does it. But for the is it $60 or $80? It's plug and play. You know,
Right.
what I don't love about it is made by Accurite, and you have to get a specific model because they had this one base unit with a bunch of different accessories, and you have to get the right accessories to be able to hook it up to Weather Underground. My issue with it is that you can't, out of the box, you can't hook it up directly from your house to Weather Underground. You have to use their smart hub, which looks like a wireless receiver with an Ethernet bridge in it, and that goes to the Accurite website, and you get an account there, and you can view your weather data on the Accurite site, much like Weather Underground.
Right.
And then from there, you will configure Weather Underground to ping your account on Accurite. So it goes from your station to Accurite to Weather Underground. If I don't know this for sure, but Accurite also offers another package where the weather station hooks up to your laptop or a desktop machine, which has to be running 24/7. But if you have that, you can go directly, from what I understand, go directly to Weather Underground. But I could be wrong about that. And my other thought was maybe with Arduino, on an Arduino little box, you could configure that in a different way. So I'm intrigued by that. I haven't really looked into it.
Right. Well, I've been looking at the Bloom Sky system, and of course, I bought one. And it doesn't even have a weather head like inside the house. It's all apps on your cell phone or on your tablet or on your computer. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. It's kind of nice just to walk by something and look at it and go, okay, temperature's going up and the pressure's going down, and it's rained 3/10 of an inch, and not have to call up an app every time. But the price savings on this compared to my repairing my old Davis unit was such that I really wanted to give it a try.
Yeah, that's what I ran into too. I had an Oregon Scientific rig from Tyler at Allison House, the severe weather data company. And it was it's a multi-$100 unit, and it was fantastic, but about 10 years of ultraviolet light and freezing temperatures took its toll on the components there. But I was happy I said on a previous show, but I sold it on eBay to some fellow who was going to use it as repair parts, so I was good about that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Mine, it would have cost more to replace the outdoor piece than I could have bought this whole new system with. That's the reason I switched. But it's going to be better in a lot of ways because it too communicates with the internet and Weather Underground. And one of the problems I had with the Davis is you had to use a memory stick to get all the weather data and then plug it into a spreadsheet or something so you can get your own personal trends and that kind of thing. So this is going to be a lot better because it does port directly to the internet and a site you set up with them.
Cool. I'm curious about that. I love, like you pointed out, I love that the Accurite has this standalone little desktop, or you can mount it on your wall, little screen. I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of here, but this plastic indoor unit that has a LED panel, and it shows you all the relevant weather data at a glance, and that's really quite nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
It's really bright. You can't have it in your bedroom. It's so bright.
But anyway, I have been a weather geek all my life, and so it just comes naturally to me, and I'm looking forward to this new system, and I'd be glad to we can compare it when I get mine up, and we can kind of check the features, yours and mine.
All right.
Okay.
You want to talk about toilets?
I got to go, man.
So David, who's a big fan from Texas, sent me an email a while back, and he had a suggestion for something to do in the winter. At least this one's inside where it's warm. He wants to know how to set the water levels in a toilet bowl. And while you're in there, some pointers on setting the correct level for the tank as well. And I wrote him back, and I'm like, I don't really know much about that. So he did some digging.
Yeah.
And well, yes, you can adjust you can adjust the level on the tank a little bit. It depends on what kind of unit you have, but actually the replacement float valves, they have a little adjustment knob on them. So, but let me read what David. There were several emails going back and forth, but the relevant one says, "Okay, I did some flushing to see what's going on," and he went to a web page. It gave him the correct name of all the parts, and it says it appears the water for the bowl comes from a fill tube via the fill valve. That fill tube is connected to the fill valve that fills the main tank, in other words. As I flush my toilet, the amount of water coming out of the fill tube is very small stream to a trickle. My hypothesis is that the fill valve has probably collected sediment and the other water things from the water supply over the years. This has caused the water valve to become stopped up and not allowing a good flow. Plus, the tank holds a small amount of water and it fills faster and thus stopping the water flow through the tube, in other words, to the bowl.
Right.
So I'm thinking it's probably not worth time to remove and clean the fill valves. Just need to go to the hardware store and get a new everything, including the tank bolts, which look pretty bad. Guess this is something that needs to be done at least once a decade. Thank you for solving my problem. You're pretty amazing. And the beauty is I didn't solve the problem at all. David solved his own problem and gave me credit.
Yep, that's the garden fork way.
So when you flush a toilet, what you're doing with that handle on the outside of the tank is you're lifting up, you're opening a valve that's inside the tank, and there's a float connected to that valve that rises, that is pushed up, basically. Oh, no, it's not pushed up. I'm sorry. So you're opening a valve, and water flows into the tank to refill. And at the same time, there's usually it's a black or a clear hose that comes off the valve, and the valve is usually on the left side of the tank, and goes down what looks like a white or black straight tube in the middle of the tank. And that's going straight to the bowl and is also filling back up the bowl with water, which you have to do because that closes off the trap, which is essentially a water barrier to keep sewer gas from coming up into your toilet. So that all that stuff nowadays is made out of plastic, which is okay. But if you have any sediment in your line or any mineral buildups in your line, that little valve starts to clog and that little tube will start to clog, reducing the amount of water that goes into your bowl and eventually into your tank. Because for whatever time the tank is filling up, that valve is still open. The tube going to the bowl is also running water, and that starts to trickle, then there's a clog somewhere. And yes, the best thing to do is you go to the hardware store. If you can figure out what kind of toilet you have, that's really helpful. But they usually have a universal valve replacement kit, and that has everything in it to replace the valve, and it's fairly easy to do. So,
and you're generally replacing it with higher quality parts than came with the toilet to begin with, just because they're newer and there's more engineering to them, and they just work better than the old ones. So it's a kind of a win-win, and as long as you got things taken apart, you might as well just go ahead and replace it all.
Yeah, and the toilet bolts, the toilet tank bolts hold the tank to the base, and there is a gasket between those two things, which we've talked about in the past. I'm trying to think if we have a video about this. We have videos about installing toilets.
Right, but I don't think we have anything about the gasket.
Oh, wow. Oh, there you go. There's a project.
There it is.
The key here is to turn off the water that comes out of the wall.
And the second key is not to over torque the screws.
Yes.
Yeah, the bolts. I have once I over torqued them and broke the bottom out of the tank, And so it doesn't work so good that way.
Oops.
Oops.
Yeah, though actually, because the bolts are encased in rubber, there's these big rubber washers, and what you're really doing is you're sealing it with rubber washers. And you just have to keep an eye on how close the tank gets to the bowl, the base, and not crack it. So, guard
There
dogs.
they go. Yeah.
How are
We're
the
having
pups?
a terrier attack. Well, I tell you, Miss Button jerked out of my hand the other day on a walk, and she was gone for an hour. Had the whole neighborhood out looking for her again. Darcy, our other terrier, they're little rescues from Cairn Rescue USA. They're not true Cairn Terriers, but they're terrier enough. They're mixes. But Darcy when he runs, he's frightened. And he is just frightened all the time. He's genetically maladapted, really. And but Button, when she takes off, she is it's wanderlust. I mean, she just revels and going, this yard and that yard and meeting this person and that person. And she was having a great time, but both of them are fairly naive about traffic. And so you worry about them when they get out.
Yeah. Oops.
Oops. Yeah.
My neighbors are looking for a new dog. They need a companion to their one of their Labradors died, and now their young lab is very lonely and needs a companion. So they're looking for like a lab mix, and they've been going online, and it's actually a little overwhelming, the different rescue sites and adoption sites. And they were looking at some dogs. They're like, oh, we found this dog we really like, but the dog is it's a Connecticut website, but the dog is in Tennessee. And they're
Right.
like, if we like the dog, they'll bring the dog up. But it sounds like you can't like test drive the dog. You can't go see the dog and see and interact with it. It's either yes or no. You can't. Can you back out of it if you don't like the dog? Or
With most places you can. I mean, you may be in some travel or shipping expenses, but most of the time. In fact, at Cairn Rescue USA, we have a motto that says, "If the dog thinks you're not working out, we'll take him back, no questions asked." And so we always take back our dogs. But it almost never happens. We've had a few that were kind of duds or they couldn't adapt, but by and large, we've been really lucky with that. But they may have to just maybe what we do a lot is kind of meet people halfway. That we'll drive the dog down about halfway, and they'll drive the other half, and then arrange a play date somewhere, that kind of thing. Because we are a volunteer organization, and it's not a professional service kind of thing.
all right, good to know. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I was going to see if we had any recent reviews, but for some reason the Garden Fork iTunes page is not loading any reviews. But we have a bunch of 5-star ratings, and we read a couple last week, which were really great. But I can't bring up. Our technology's failing us here. So.
Oh dear. Well, my computer dived out as we began this podcast. So
Yeah.
everything's going to hell in a handbasket, I tell you.
Hey, I don't know if I'm just going to a shameless plug again, but I interviewed Babs Perkins on the Root Simple podcast, and that was pretty interesting about disappearing foods, basically because of, really globalization. But this is kind of macro to the European Union and how these Bosnian cheeses can no longer are starting to not be made because the Bosnians can't sell them to the Croatians anymore because the Croatians joined the UE. And there's a larger story there about Babs and her documentary work, but that's over on the Root Simple podcast. You want to check that out.
Wow.
So.
Wow. You're moving up in the world, my friend.
Well, it's kind of funny because...
But how come you weren't doing that here?
Well, because I am not very good self-motivator. I am very good when someone gives me a list of things to do, or asks me to do something, or tells me to do something, or it's my job. So, Kelly,
so you're the perfect husband.
I have a
ideal
list.
Husband.
I basically people ask me what I do now, and I go, I'm my wife's personal assistant.
That's it.
Well, I can't do anything else. I can talk. But and I'm sure there's people out there listening that are like going, talking back to their podcast. But if I have to do something for someone else, I'm 110%. So Kelly of Root Simple had open heart surgery, and it's basically Eric, her husband, is a full-time caretaker right now. Totally dodged the bullet. By the way, just donate blood and help everybody. And I said, look, I can't really bring you meatloaf. Well, I think they're vegetarians anyway. I can't bring you a casserole because they're in LA. I said, but how about I take over your podcast? How about I do a guest hosting? And the camera operator came up with a great suggestion of somebody who we knew that would be a great subject that for the Root Simple people and Garden Fork people. But I was so excited to do it. And maybe because it was new, it was different, but I'm much better at doing things for other people than doing them for myself. So,
I ended up with remember a few months ago, I went and shot a wedding, and I needed, it was for a friend and family friends, so I didn't charge anything. And I spent a lot of money buying a new lens and some extra lights and that kind of thing. Well, I have volunteered for one of my wife's groups to shoot a group pictures for a tea that they're going to have to celebrate the sinking of the Titanic. I guess you don't celebrate that, but it's on April 15th. Commemorate, that's it. And so I used it as an opportunity to buy more gear, That's how my motivator works. When I need new gear, I go look for something, and then I say, well, honey, I'll do this for you, but I'm going to need to buy a few things.
Well, that'll be a little easier than the wedding. The wedding was a big deal because I talked to you while you were doing that, and that's a tough one, man.
Weddings are a thankless job, and I think I've done my last one. I've done 2 now, and I think that's going to be it.
All right. Well, the last thing I want to talk about is an interesting segue to this is that you sent me a link to a podcast in which a guy does weddings by advertising on Craigslist. And it's by the podcast is by the guy that wrote the book, The $100 Startup.
Right. Chris Gillibrew.
Yes.
Yeah. And the podcast is called...
I'll fill some time. The interesting story is that he interviews people that have all these side jobs, and they're kind of unique, but or maybe, I never thought about that. But it's stuff that you all might possibly be able to do. And I like the one about the Craigslist photographer, and it's kind of like a Rick story where he was just somebody asked him to take some photographs at a wedding, and the bride was super happy with it. And he said, well, maybe I could do this as like a side gig on the weekends. And he shot a couple of weddings on advertising on Craigslist, I think for $250 for the whole wedding.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And he basically created a portfolio with those inexpensive weddings, and he was able to raise his price, and now it's a successful side gig. And he charges a couple $1,000s now. So that's not bad.
The name of the podcast is Side Hustle School. And it's Chris Gillibrew. And then it's only like 8 minutes long. It's one every day. He doesn't actually interview people on air. He just has talked to them beforehand. And then he tells their story. And so you get a nice, succinct way to frame everything and see how they did it, sort of, and the amazing ways people have to create these side hustles and get a little money coming in on the side. Sometimes as much as $8,000 or $10,000 a month. I was just amazed.
Yeah, I gotta get on that. Because, but the problem is, the personal assistant job is just exhausting. I have to vacuum. I'm vacuuming right now, actually, downstairs. So.
Oh, really?
I turned on the robot vacuum.
I wished I had one of those.
Well, that was a splurge, but man, is it a time saver. They're not cheap. I guess I should. I've been wondering about doing a video review of that, and I didn't think is that like a Garden Forky thing or not, but I don't know.
Well, I think done is better than perfect, and in this case, I'd go with that because, around here we have tile or hardwood all through the house. And then area rugs. We don't have any carpet. And our biggest problem is keeping up with dog hair. And so
Yes.
something like that would be just ideal. I need to look into getting one.
Well, I will link to the one that I have in the show notes here, and then I guess I should really write something and put together a video then, because I have a neighbor has one as well, so I have some experience with that as well, because we talk about our vacuums.
Well, how do the dogs get along with it?
Oh, they get out of the way. They
Really?
they just go. They actually jump up on the bed, which is perfect.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen those, like cats riding on the Roombas as they go around, and lots of videos like that, and occasionally dogs attacking them. But anyway, well, I think we've just about reached the end of our commute.
you have reached your destination. I always think,
right.
I always think about the different listeners that send us email, and it's always great to hear from everybody. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. Just got another shout out from Maddie. It's always great to hear from him. He's like, hey, you did this, and I was like, wow, so I love that kind of thing.
Well, things are going well here. We'll, I guess I do need to get out the lights and start doing some seed starting, but I'm going to wait until we get back. We're going to run down to Florida in March, and so we'll maybe we can do something from there.
All right, sounds good. Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate it. You want to tell your friends about it? That's always great too. So make it
You
a great
bet.
day. All right.
Talk to you later, my friend.